So you want to listen to a pretty alright podcast about wrestling, do ya?
Well, the natural lad, Jim Swag, has said time and time again that there's only one podcast that's the most decent and the most alrightest in the industry today.
And that's it's the Game Rage Wrestling Podcast. Welcome back to another fun-filled episode of Game Rage Wrestling.
Fuck yeah.
My name's Josh. I'm here today with good buddy Adam.
Greetings.
And today we're going to be talking about the new Netflix documentary, Vince McMahon, episode number 1. Before we get into that, if you want to listen to more of our stuff, you can go to YouTube and follow along there. Like, comment, and subscribe at Game Rage Magazine. Additionally, if you want to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine, Twitter/X at Game Rage Mag. If you want to follow Adam, you can follow Adam at All Gas No Trash Official on Instagram and go listen to the All Gas No Trash podcast, which you can hear also on YouTube. Additionally, speaking of YouTube, if you want to hear the Anime Syndicate podcast, you can go there as well. And you can follow our good buddy Frank at anime_syndicate_podcast. Fun fact, if you listen to Game Rage Magazine, you become immune to being choked out by Hulk Hogan.
Oh, shit.
Like, if you listen to Game Rage Magazine and Hulk Hogan puts you in a chokehold or a sleeper hold or any sort of choke of any kind, it will be ineffective against you and you will be immune. 100% guaranteed. I have never been knocked unconscious. I've never been put to sleep by Hulk Hogan since I started listening to Game Rage Magazine.
It's true.
True story.
Can't be disputed.
Undisputable. Any listener of Game Rage Magazine has never been choked unconscious by Hulk Hogan. True fact.
Nice.
Do you have any facts this episode? No? Very well. All right, let's get into it. Vince McMahon. I want to say, I just want to start off. I want to start off by saying, I'm not defending the molestations or the poor treatment of women. Okay, I'm not going to defend that. But subtracting all of that,
You can split hairs.
yeah. Vince McMahon is actually a person I aspire to be like.
Only the business side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If anything, this has just shown how excellent at business he is. Even when at the beginning, we get into, obviously, his childhood a little bit.
Well, I don't want to go over that, man, because it was already... Before you get to the part, I just want to say... The way the documentary started by introducing the Janelle Grant shit first.
Yeah.
Interesting choice. Because I don't know if that means that's going to dictate like how the rest of the thing goes, is that they're portraying him in his early life, and also his early professional career, and eventually getting to the business his father had created or whatever. But like, if it's going to spell out with the end of the Janelle Grant shit, but
yeah.
Because it also says like this documentary was being made as the $3 million that were allocated for the sexual harassment, like lawsuits and shit that was mentioned in the beginning. But also, man, like the first thing that like Vince McMahon says is he's like, well, I don't like talking about myself. There's some things I want to talk about, but I can't really.
Yeah.
And
what the fuck was that about?
Why would you say that?
Obviously, he didn't know
who you are.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Oh, I wish I could tell you the real stories.
Yeah.
Well, they're like, oh, why don't you tell us one? And he's like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that.
I don't like talking about my own life.
Yeah.
What the fuck was that, dude?
That was a little strange. Considering how this all ended up. Man, that's kind of crazy.
Also, with his father so we get introduced to him as a child and how his mother had a relationship with the stepfather, and his stepfather was abusive. And then he eventually meets his...
He didn't even meet his dad until he was 12.
Yeah, so like, I'm thinking, all right, well, maybe that's where the fucked up shit came out of, if he really did all that shit, which he probably did because he sexually harassed his employees, like, constantly, especially the women. I think it's like, okay, well, at least we got an explanation of possibly where he got his weird behaviors because he was mistreated as a child, and his father wasn't affectionate because it's like, oh man, I expected my dad to greet me with a fucking hug. He's like, hey there, boy.
Yeah. I mean, I think, because I ended up watching the second episode too, but I don't remember when.
How did you watch it? Oh, it's already out?
Yeah, the whole thing's out.
Oh shit.
They didn't do it like week by week. It's like they just put it all out at once.
Okay.
So I just ran and watched it in the second episode, which we'll do another episode on that specifically. But
okay.
I don't remember if he says, does his dad die in this first episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he says, my dad didn't tell me he loved me until the day before he died, which was on his deathbed, basically.
Cool. That's going to be the same thing that happens to me, probably.
And if anything, people were talking about how, this is going to Netflix is doing this documentary, this weird tell-all documentary, and like, they just made this multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar deal with WWE. This is going to hurt them. Honestly, this kind of gives us a backstory and an explanation as to why Vince McMahon's a fucking crazy asshole. I mean, this almost makes Vince McMahon look like a sympathetic character because of the fact that he was abused as a child for 12 fucking years, and then when he was essentially rescued out of that, his dad basically emotionally abused him essentially for fucking the rest of his life, and even to the point where he's like, you're just gonna come work for me or whatever. This is gonna be like my payback to you. And he's like, I'm getting ready to sell the business, and he wasn't even gonna sell it to Vince or let him take over. He was gonna sell it to Gorilla Monsoon, and which is very funny how you see that Gorilla Monsoon continued to stay on even after Vince bought the company, and Vince basically made him be an announcer with them or whatever, knowing that he hated him, that's fucking crazy.
Also, the part about all the wrestling territories.
Yeah.
It's like a mafia, like
right.
Mafia families, right?
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
all right, everybody stay in their territory. But it's almost, I hate to say it, but it's like it was almost poetic justice, deservedly so, that these guys were like, we're making enough money, like, yeah, we can stay out of each other's territories, because not to, I don't know if I'm going to contribute to your point about like, yeah, dude, Vince McMahon is something of a visionary, because it's like he wanted to elevate wrestling to beyond carny shit.
Yeah.
And moving, if these guys weren't going to evolve, and if they were just complacent, content with what they were doing within their respective territories, it's like, fuck, wrestling would probably still be carny shit or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
So the only reason it got better is because he ended up pushing everybody out. And yeah, that's at the expense of everybody else, but it almost made everything better too. Yeah,
it did. And so that's the crazy thing is Vince McMahon is a visionary. He's a genius at wrestling. And it wasn't because, I mean, he was the first one to say, you know what? Fuck this shit. Literally, he conned the company out of his dad basically by saying, all right, I'm gonna take the company on payment plans. And like his deal was, if I miss one single payment by a day or whatever, if I don't make it on that day, the payment that's due, then you'll get the company back,
and you keep the money,
and you keep all the money I've paid you. And they were like, oh fuck yeah, we're just gonna make money on this because this kid's gonna fail. And he proved them wrong, obviously. And the second that he made the final payment, that was when he started booking shows in other territories.
Fucking baller move.
Baller fucking move. To say, no, I don't see this as just a fucking regional, this is a national thing. We're going to take wrestling national. We're going to be the first national brand.
Yeah, because the best part is, it's like, it's told, I think, from Eric Bischoff's perspective. Maybe it's the narrator, or he said it himself, but I like the part where Eric Bischoff was thrown in because he was part of like the AWA, think, territory.
The Vern territory, yeah.
That was cool because it's like, oh, this is what it was like before. And shit, man, I didn't even know Hollywood wrestling had been around for X amount of years when that shit was going on. I thought Hollywood wrestling only started. So it was like kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. But hearing Eric Bischoff talk about it before like the WCW days, and he's like, man, he really started pushing people's buttons by going into the territories. But it was also the thing about Vince McMahon seeing how television or how distribution was going to change by cable television. And he's like, I'm going to get my fucking product everywhere. So I'm going to get this deal with fucking USA. Dude, to have that kind of foresight and not be stuck in like to be stuck in the old ways, like that is commendable, but that is not to take away from his problems personally with all the shit that happened with him. But there are things within his professional career, you're like, man, you kind of have to respect that.
Yeah, and I think that it's acceptable to and it's kind of similar with this like P. Diddy situation, right? Like you can take the contribution someone has done to something and you can still respect and enjoy those contributions, but separate that from the shitbag person that they are.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can do that. I think that's acceptable. I don't think that you have to denounce someone and everything that they've ever done just because they were a shitty person.
Yeah, it's like Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
Murdered his family. Nobody's going to say, oh, the dude's fucking a great person. You could say he's a great wrestler, but
right.
in personal matters with his family, that shit was fucked up.
I'm wondering if they're going to cover that on this eventually. I'd like to hear what Vince's actual reasoning for erasing him from history would be. Considering what Vince McMahon has done himself, like, you know, and like, I'd like to know, and obviously they probably never got to ask him this, but like, how do you feel about, why do you think your contributions to wrestling should still be allowed to be talked about, but yet you chose to erase this guy's contributions because of what he did?
Or Owen Hart's death, like how come that's locked up? And
right.
Yeah, that's kind of like erased because that's a blemish on you.
I wonder if they're going to talk about that. I mean,
that'd be something.
I do like how Bret Hart in any fucking documentary, he loves to just talk shit about fucking Vince McMahon.
Dude, my favorite part is like how he self-promoted. He's like, oh man, what I did was...
Yeah, I was an artist. I was an artist.
What I did in the ring, I was waiting for the Bill Goldberg drop like it didn't...
Dude, honestly, man, the more I hear Bret Hart say shit, the more and more I think this motherfucker's delusional. I mean, I enjoyed Bret Hart as an in-ring technician with wrestling. Granted, for what it was back in the mid-90s, Bret Hart did the work, all right? He could put on great matches for the mid-90s. But he had, if you really think about it, I mean, he had like 9 moves. I mean, that's it. He was great at those, and he could wrestle, but mic skills,
Not really.
Not really having it. He was a much better heel than he ever was as a babyface, in my opinion. But I think that he overestimates his contributions. Bret Hart was a transitional champion in the WWF. He was that transitional champion to get to the next big guy, which was Shawn Michaels. That's all he was. He was just a title holder, a placeholder until they found the next big thing. So, you know, sure, he had some good contributions, but like, I don't know. I just feel like the more and more he's on things, it's just he's fucking delusional as his contributions to wrestling. I
think my favorite, well, it wasn't my favorite part. It was probably the most interesting part when they started talking about how Vince McMahon had the uncanny ability to see characters or potential in people.
Yeah.
Well, also he rated like pretty much every promotion and just picked up their talent and they become part of the WWF, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I'm a minority, but hearing the part about how characters were created, like the Iron Sheik was specifically made to like play out the fantasy of the Iran crisis with the hostage situation, right? It's like, well, you can't openly be racist in public and point your finger at Iranians that live in the United States. So let's do it in the ring and have the Iron Sheik. It's kind of fucked up.
It's like Tony Atlas said. Wrestling is a mirror of society. He's you want to know what's in wrestling? Just hold up a mirror to society and you'll see, oh shit, this is all happening in wrestling.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
And I think that's a very poignant statement.
But it's also reflective, like, to me, the carny shit, like the white trashness of wrestling.
Right. Yeah. And no matter how much, and that's the thing that sucks, is no matter how much you want to rebrand it or call it sports entertainment or call it whatever, wrestling will always and forever just be carny shit at its heart. That's what it is. It's changed a lot, but at the base level, it's just advanced carny shit now at this point.
Yeah, it's a fucking pageantry contest between men fighting over a belt.
Yeah, and women.
And women, yeah.
Now. So I thought that this first episode was a great introduction into. I don't know if it's not telling us what this fucking thing is actually going to be about.
No, it doesn't seem.
I don't think that whatever they started out to do, as soon as when they were getting towards the end of filming and they said in the thing that these allegations, the first inklings of this allegation and Vince had to step down, that's when this thing was being filmed. And so I am very curious to know why, because that happened in 2021?
Yeah, it happened in 2021.
So why did this take fucking 3 years to come out after they had recorded all these interviews? And I feel like it's because whatever they initially did, once these interviews came out, it changed the whole narrative of what this thing was going to be about.
Yeah, and possibly if they're doing a documentary, they might find information that's going to be used in court too.
That maybe, but I mean, that case is still going on, isn't it?
It is, but I guess I mean that anything that is brought on that's new could also, or I don't know if it would influence the outcome, but it's like, well, the judge is going to go home and probably see this documentary. He probably has to abstain from it, but it's like, something, I don't know, sometimes you can't help it, right? But
that's true.
But it's like the butterfly effect. Like, what would happen if they released that documentary, or rather, if this documentary would affect the outcome of like the things that were going on with that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm curious to see if they actually talked to Brock Lesnar or John Laurinaitis.
I don't know, man.
Which were the two guys that were named. And I mean, some of those guys that they interviewed, for sure they interviewed after the Janelle Grant indictment thing, or not indictment, but the lawsuit came out. Because they did talk about how it was in gory detail, some of the things that, were said. So some of these people were talked to after that came out, obviously. And that was, a year later? It was in 2022 or 2023 when that came out. It was 2023 when that came out. So it was a couple years later. So clearly they've been still recording shit up until this, thing came out, basically. So
with six episodes, I mean, shit, that's
a lot, and they're all an hour long, basically. So that's a lot of fucking ground to cover.
Yep.
And I'm interested. I mean, I already watched episode 2, which is it's another good episode. It's kind of just basically all about WrestleMania, and how the WrestleManias kind of came about.
Well, they talk about that in episode 1.
Is that where it ended?
Roughly, because it was,
that's right.
It was kind of the stakes.
Yeah.
So after the success of obviously him taking over the business, getting on television, it's like, all right, how do we take it to the next level? We need to be associated with pop culture.
Yeah.
So then Cyndi Lauper gets involved with wrestling, and Mr. T gets involved, and WrestleMania 1 happens.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's like Vince McMahon rationalized it. It's like, well, baseball has the World Series and football has the Super Bowl, and those are the end of the year events that you know, capitulated each of those respective sports. So it's like, why doesn't wrestling have that? And then he's like, I bet the farm on this fucking.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He bet everything he had on it, and it was a success. And then that led into WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 3, and we got all that shit.
That's kind of like the death of possibly other brands because nobody else is going to be considering.
Yeah, that was the death. That was when he won wrestling. Like when WrestleMania 1 was a success, he won wrestling. So, where did now I'm getting confused as to what ended this episode.
I think that's where it roughly ended.
Yeah. Okay. Was that WrestleMania 1?
Mm-hmm.
Because episode 2, I didn't actually finish episode 2, but I started it. But that's where they talk about 2 and 3 and Andre the Giant and this other shit.
Yeah.
That's when they get into that episode. We'll talk about that episode on the next episode of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far this series is very entertaining. It's putting out some new information that I didn't know about, like the structure of the contract that he had with his dad to buy. I didn't know what the contents of that were, so it was cool to hear that. Most of this shit, though, I mean, I kind of already knew.
Yeah, like
territory stuff, the Hogan shit. Did they talk about the union shit in this one?
No.
Okay, so that's in the next episode. That's very interesting when we get to that.
I forgot to talk about the segment about how wrestling was reaching mainstream culture, so they ended up on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, yeah.
And the 2 programs where they ended up being problematic was, I don't know if it was 2020, but it was John Stossel, I think that's the guy's name, the reporter.
Yeah, he came to cover an event, and he was trying to prove that wrestling was, like, fake or bullshit.
Yeah, and I think Hulk Hogan was, like, saying that this guy wasn't out to report on wrestling itself. He was actually there to expose it. And then that Richard Belzer guy, Hogan was on his program, and he's like, oh, well, why don't you show me something? And he fucking chokes him out, and his head starts bleeding after he hits the ground.
Choked him out, and he fucking fell down and fucking
got a concussion.
And he was fucked up or whatever from it. And both of those guys sued. Oh, because that's what it was. Dave Schultz fucking bitch slapped the shit out of fucking John Stossel, which was hilarious to watch. and then he's on 2020 talking to Barbara Walters, and he's like, and the doctors say I have ear damage that's probably permanent. You were going on about how this shit's fake, and a dude fucking slapped you in the head twice, and you have permanent ear damage? Like, you're a bitch.
Yeah, I will say that one of the things that Hulk Hogan contributed as far as this documentary goes, when he says, oh, wrestling's fake, man? Well, I don't know. Tell it to my fucking 23 surgeries. Like, that's a fair point, man. When you talk about something that's supposed to be fictional and the damage is real, that's a hard...
Well, he said it right. Yeah, sure. It's fictional.
Choreographed.
It's choreographed.
It's scripted.
It's scripted, but it's still real. And I mean, I do agree. Fuck these assholes that want to say that it's quote unquote fake. I mean, sure, it's scripted, it's choreographed. It's not fake though. That's one thing that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a men's soap opera or whatever you want to call it. It's just the one that gets the most condemnation or whatever.
Yeah. Negative shit. And then Vince McMahon saying that line about how, they say that there's no such thing as bad publicity, but bullshit, there is bad publicity. But not really, though. That didn't hurt them at all. If anything, that caused more people to say, oh, what's this? I feel like that helped them. I feel like that there is no such thing as bad publicity for the most part.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it also, I forget if it ended on the steroid shit, because I think that was maybe one of the things.
It was like the more controversy. It was like, he said it was about like, oh, now that we were successful and that causes more people to scrutinize us or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And then it started talking about the steroid stuff a little bit. It got a little bit into that, but it didn't really flesh it out.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe they're not going to, because like that's already been widely reported on and established. So maybe they're just going to gloss over that.
Yeah, I mean, if this is a documentary about Vince McMahon, then it should really just be about him instead of the company itself.
And man, like, if it's one thing I've learned in this documentary, Hogan's kind of a snitch, man.
Why is that?
Oh, this guy's, he's Vince, he's telling on everybody. And then we'll talk about it in the next episode. But he snitches on some other motherfucker in the next episode.
Oh, the union shit?
Yeah, he snitches out Jesse Ventura.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And we'll talk about that. But yeah, like that, man, that's kind of a bitch move right there. You're the top guy getting paid the most, and you don't want your buddies to get paid decently as well?
Yeah, but it's probably because
Yeah, it would be to his detriment because he'd probably get paid less.
Yeah, you get paid less. Everybody get paid on more or less the same salary or whatever. And he's like, man, I don't want to lose my spot, so I better bury somebody. Jesse Ventura.
Oh yeah, that doesn't work for me, brother. That's the
doesn't
origin.
work for me, brother. Yeah.
That's the origin of the phrase. Is fucking.
It affected him so much so that he
Yeah.
ended up leaving WWE
And going to WCW.
be the top star.
Yep. Hey, John Stossel, you want to fucking report wrestling's fake? That doesn't work for me, brother. Hey, Jesse Ventura, you want to fucking... Hey, what was that guy's name? The host that he choked out?
Richard Belzer or something?
Hey, Richard Belzer, you want to talk shit to me on television? It doesn't work for me, brother. I'm going to choke your bitch ass out.
Yeah.
So
The funny thing was like Vince McMahon, and I don't think he actually... Well, it's blurry whether he actually directed somebody, but he said, oh man, I wish somebody would take care of that John Stossel guy.
Oh man, I wish this guy would get slapped in the face extremely hard 2 times. You know, basically.
It's like a mobster saying, hey, I wish somebody would take care of this problem.
Well, there's your Carney shit, right? There's your Carney shit. Vince McMahon saying that, oh, I wasn't scared when they were threatening me when I was taking over territories, and then here he is doing essentially the same.
And then Hogan and Atlas rationalized it as like, oh, well, we were protecting the business, so we got to protect our fucking means of getting paid and shit.
Carney shit.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I'm not saying it's bad, but, you know.
Yeah, it was. I will say it was quite an engaging episode for what will be a 6-part series.
It was. So stay tuned for 5 more episodes of this, because it'll be interesting to see where this turns out or where this ends up. So, anyways, all right. You got anything else to add?
No.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Thanks for checking it out. If you want to hear more, go to YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe to Game Rage Magazine. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine, Twitter/X at Game Rage Mag. Follow Adam at All Gas No Trash Official, and you can follow Frank at anime_syndicate_podcast on Instagram.
Peace out.
Yeah, peace out. Get fucked.
Sucked in.
That was another wonderful, amazing, powerful episode of the Game Rage Wrestling Podcast. And take it from me, ladies and gentlemen, the natural lad, Jet Swag. If there's one podcast, one show you should be listening to, that you should be absolutely grateful for, it's the Game Rage Wrestling Podcast. And one of the things you can do to show your appreciation for all the hard work and dedication that these boys put out day in, day out, just for you people, it's that you can go and you can subscribe and you can like and follow them on the Instagram and the TikTok at Game Rage Magazine. You can also follow them and like them and subscribe to them on the old Twitter, which I don't know what it's called now, but who cares? It's at Game Rage Mag there. Additionally, if you feel the need to really show your appreciation, which you should, then go to their website at www.GameRageMagazine.com and show us some love. Show them some love. And show some love for the natural lad, Jet Swag.